Hey folks, Alan Saunders joined by Mike Vukovcan for another edition of Pitt Panther Talk, focusing on the basketball team as Jeff Capel's program has some news, and not particularly of the good variety this Wednesday as the program and Xavier Johnson announced a mutual separation, with Johnson sitting out the rest of the season and entering the transfer portal to find a new home for the 2021-22 season. Johnson, one of Capel's prize recruits, part of that huge three-man recruiting class he got before ever really setting foot on the Pitt campus, and Pitt's starting point guard for 81 games since he joined the team in 2018. A big loss, obviously, on a number of levels. Mike, what was your first reaction to hearing the news this morning that Xavier Johnson is moving on from the Pitt program?
I wasn't the fact that he's moving on. I wasn't surprised because I felt all along that one way or the other he wouldn't be with them next year, whether transfer, whether declare for the NBA draft, or just decide to see what the money is over in Europe and go play. I didn't think he was going to be at Pitt next year. I think as we've watched the last couple of years. Not sure what the relationship is with him and Jeff Capel. From an outside perspective, I would say that I don't think it's terrible, but I wouldn't say it's great. A lot of frustration, I think, from both sides with each other. And I was just surprised about the timing, though. 3 games left in the regular season, 1 game in the ACC tournament. This would tell me, once again, just speculation on my part, but the fact that it happened like this immediately, I would guess that if you had asked me, I would guess that it was an urging from Jeff Capel to get on with your life's work because you're not going to be part of this program, and if not, he would have stayed. But I would guess it would be more on the Pitt side than Xavier Johnson's side.
Yeah, I'm with you. I was kind of taken aback by the timing of it, but not necessarily banking on Johnson being a big part of Pitt's plans going forward. I thought it was really illustrative that Jeff Capel was just very blunt about his feelings about Johnson's inability to stay on the floor and taking some undisciplined fouls that have taken him out of games. And he, the fact that you say it publicly, I tried everything, I can't get through to this kid. That's when there's some fraying in the relationship there, which is a shame because I think Xavier Johnson had the potential to be a next level guard for Pitt and maybe be an NBA type player, but I feel like he never really developed into an all around player. He was still that kind of out of control, likes to drive and play on emotion, but wasn't ever the kind of consistent player that Pitt needed to be and score. I mean, I think his shooting still needs some work, obviously. But we're kind of, regardless of what your thoughts are on Xavier Johnson's game and how he developed in Pitt and whether he was going to be a part of this team moving forward, obviously a huge hole here. Now with 3 games left in the season, Pitt's going to be without starting point guard.
Yeah, for anyone, there's 2 sides to this. Are people not upset that he's not going to be part of the program? Sure. But for anyone to try to say that it's not going to be a loss either this year or possibly, or maybe even next year, they're crazy because Jeff Capel now has to, this year, it doesn't matter. Pitt's not going to make a run through it would be highly unlikely that they're going to make a run through the ACC tournament. So this season's done, but now he has to start the process of finding a point guard for next year. We didn't know at the beginning of the season, it looked as though, Pitt might only graduate 1 person this season, Terrell Brown, or be looking to add who knows how many players. But as the season has gone on here, the availability of Pitt adding players to the roster is growing and could grow more. Who knows with the way college basketball is? It could be growing a lot. I wouldn't say a lot, but maybe a couple more, depending on what Champagny does and anyone else that decides to leave from the program or are encouraged not to return. So it's a loss, but as I just reported a little bit earlier on the site, Pitt's already in the process of trying to find a replacement and I guess they're looking right now through the transfer portal, which will no doubt be heavy again after this season.
Yeah, I think I don't know. This season is sort of a loss as far as like they're not going to make the NCAA tournament, but I still think what happens the rest of this year can matter a lot for Pitt. As they sit here now, they're 9-9, 5-8 in the ACC. They have 3 winnable games left. I mean, they don't. It's NC State, Wake Forest, and Clemson. None of those teams are world beaters that Pitt can't hang with. You win those 3 games, or even 2 of those 3 games. I think that makes a huge difference as to how people would feel about this team going forward compared to 0-3, which would then mean losing, something like 11 of their last 12, another late season collapse. I mean, look, I don't think they've been good for most of the last month, but they also, I mean, look, they lost to Virginia and Florida State in there. Like, those are not games they're supposed to win. 1 point loss to NC State and a 1 point loss to Wake Forest, and maybe it's a whole different feeling about this team. I think these last 3 games matter. I think they matter a lot. I think Pitt needs to win a couple of them if they want. Look, I don't think you wrote today that is there progress under Jeff Capel, or are we seeing progress on this team? Well, I think if they win 2 of these last 4, then I think you can obviously see progress. That would make 7 wins in ACC play. In a shortened schedule. They only had 6 last year. They had 3 in his first year. Is that leaps and bounds progress? No, but it's that kind of incremental progress that if you're a head coach, you can point to with recruits and say, look, we're building this team, but it's slowly. We need you to come here and make that next step. And you can also point to boosters and executives and say, look, I'm doing what I can, but I need more. I need more resources. I need, I need more from the school and from the boosters to make this happen. You're not going to get that if you're not showing a positive trajectory. If people think that Jeff Capel is not the answer, he's not going to get those recruits, and he's not going to get those additional resources from boosters and from the school. And so I do think these last 3 games are really important to Pitt program in the big picture. And I don't know if the NIT is going to happen, but if they make a little run here, that's still not out of the question, which I think would be huge for this team.
I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you to a point. However, from what I read and from what I feel again, even if let's go with your numbers, and let's say they win 2 out of the last 3 games, not looking at the ACC tournament. Let's say they win. I'm looking, instead of winning 2 out of the last 3, I'm looking at it, and I read a lot of the same. I read a portion of the Pitt fan base. They're looking at it as, even if they win those 2 games, they've lost 8 other last 10 or 11 games. I think it's more how the season has ended again for the 3rd straight season, unless they went on some, win the last 3 games, win a few. That might be different, but I just think the big picture is that people got to taste a little bit of a possible being mentioned in bracketology and all that stuff too early. They were getting a feel. Here we go. We're getting better, and then boom, things fell again. And I just don't know, winning 2 out of the last 3 games. I agree with you, some of what you're saying, but I just think the big picture is it's going to be another season of 10, 11 wins, and I'm okay with Jeff Capel, but I think there's going to get to be a point which I don't agree with, but we know it's going to happen. Winning has to start happening, and you're having players transfer. Let's see what happens. It would be really big if Champagny decides to return next season. That would stabilize things. If not, next season, if he doesn't return, next season could be real dicey.
Yeah, and I agree with what you're saying there about the fans. And I think this is something I've been saying for a while. I think Pitt fans' expectations with their basketball team are not in line with reality.
Right.
Pitt is never going to be a regular top 10 team again. That's not going to happen. It shouldn't have ever happened. It was an incredible miracle situation that allowed it to happen for a little while. Getting back there should not be in anyone's expectations. If Jeff Capel in 5 or 6 years can get the team to a point where it's regularly ranked and regularly making the NCAA tournament, that would be a huge deal. if you replaced every ACC coach with a robot that both recruited and coached on the court at exactly the same level, Pitt, just based on its campus, its school, its tradition of success, its fan support, would finish about 13th every year. That's about where Pitt deserves to finish in the ACC. Like, I don't think people have an understanding of the, like, they get, like, somebody, they lost to NC State and they were like, oh my God, they lost 11 straight games to NC State. It's like, well, NC State should beat Pitt every year. Like, there's, if you're the coach of NC State and you lose to Pitt, you should get fired for losing to Pitt, because that's a place where people really care about basketball. They've won national championships. They have a huge arena that sells out. They have boosters coming out the year. That's not Pitt. Like, Pitt doesn't have any of those things. This is not a place people care that much about basketball. It's not a place with basketball talent locally. It doesn't have a tradition of success. Like, yeah, NCAA State should be better than Pitt every year. Every team in the ACC, except for, like, I don't know, Virginia Tech and Boston College, should probably be better than Pitt most years. And I think it's good. Listen, I think it's going to take a long time for people to figure that out, that their expectations are not in reality. And look, I think that the one thing you can point to about Jeff Capel's tenure at Pitt, that you can say, like, well, this is, he's just not getting good enough kids. Like, it's not like Xavier Johnson is, he's a 3-star point guard. Like, that's not, I think his career at Pitt, even truncated though it was, I think he still exceeded expectations, right? I mean, that's better than you're going to expect to get out of what it looked like he was getting. And if Jeff Capel can't get you the kids that you need to win in the ACC, I don't think the problem is Jeff Capel. I think the problem is Pitt, because there's a guy that recruited everywhere he's ever gone. He made Duke's recruiting better, of all places. And so I don't think if you need better players than Jeff Capel can get you, then you just can't win, because nobody's going to come in and do better than that.
Yeah, I don't. Your argument there. I love the passion. I love that passion. I don't know that I've ever seen that out of you like that. But I agree with you. Everything you've just said. Dixon spoiled this fan base, and they got it to a place where they were thinking. And I think Pitt, with some of the teams that are in the top 25 now, being in the, you'll get that ACC bias as far as, maybe pollsters and everyone else thinking you're better than you are. I think Pitt has a chance to be a semi-regular team in the top 25. And I think that's what the expectation should be. Every other year or every few years, maybe you make a little bit of a run toward the top half. The goal now for Capel, though, is getting to that top 25. And unfortunately for him, hopefully for him, he keeps some of this roster together. And I'm just worried. I'm just looking ahead. I saw something today. Sports Illustrated had their the Twitter address, the crossover. They had their top 60 players, and Champagny went up to number 24. So the more things, if he did, would you agree with me? In next year's roster, that's what you're looking for progress. You're going to be in year 4. You're 4 years. You'd have 4 recruiting classes to put in. Next year might be on paper his, and we just don't know about transfers. We don't know who he could bring in. But as far as what we're seeing, possibly return, it'd probably be comparable to his first roster when he took over at Pitt, as far as talent level goes.
It would be comparable as far as talent level, but it wouldn't be comparable as far as where the program stands. Right.
Right.
Recruited those guys, the Johnson.
And one other thing, Alan, the ACC this year is an off year for talent level. Next year, I find it hard to believe that the ACC is going to be down as they appear to be this year.
Yeah, I don't. I don't think there's. Yeah, I mean, they're not, but I don't think that's a. I don't think that matters to Pitt, because let's be honest, they're not playing with those top 15 teams anyway. Like, Pitt's going to lose to Florida State 9 out of 10 anyway. Like, that, where Pitt needs to worry about is the NC States, the Syracuses, the Virginia Techs, the Clemsons. Like, that's really what's keeping Pitt from being the team they want to be. Like, you can be in the top 25 and lose every game to Florida State, Virginia, Duke, and North Carolina you ever play. That's fine. It's if you beat the other teams. And like, Pitt can beat Duke. They beat Duke this year. They beat Florida State last year. They can beat those teams, but what's gonna get Pitt from where they want to be to where they are is being able to consistently beat the middle to bottom tier teams. Like, they lost to Wake Forest this year. They lost to Notre Dame this year. Like, those are the games that they've got to win. And so, I agree with you that the top of the ACC is going to get better. Duke and NC are going to go back.
The whole league.
Yeah.
I find it hard to believe that Syracuse is going to be.
I don't know about Syracuse. They haven't been recruiting that well. I think.
Yeah, I'm saying the teams you mentioned.
Duke, North Carolina, like, those teams are going to go back up.
The new coach of Wake Forest is going to do a hell of a better job than Danny Manning did down there, Steve Forbes. Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech's this guy appears to be a professional coach. They're going to get better. That's what I'm saying. So Pitt has to be able to stay par with those guys, and we'll see who they're able to bring in. What's their updated scholarship now?
Well, it depends on what happens with John Hughley. They should have at least 3. Terrell Brown, Nike Sabande are both going to have their eligibility expire. Now, those guys can come back because of this extra year, but they won't count towards Pitt's 13. And then Xavier Johnson would make 3, and then John Hughley's, I guess, is up in the air whether he's going to come back or not. That would be a 4th scholarship for Pitt potentially. I wouldn't think it's out of the question to think that there could be more movement. They had a couple of guys that haven't played that much so far this year. They could leave. So I would think they'll bring in 4 guys, probably for sure 4 guys to bring in, maybe more than 4 guys, but certainly that many. I'm not one that tends to freak out about them not having anybody signed. If you remember, Pitt only knew it was going to have one of those scholarships available as of December. This was supposed to be kind of a nothing class for Pitt, and Jeff Capel was spending most of his time last summer recruiting 2022 kids. I remember we go back to talking about our meetings for this year. We were like, well, we're not going to be able to cover basketball recruiting because they're not really recruiting anyone. They didn't really have anybody that they cared about getting. Now they're going to get in late, but a lot of the kids that aren't committed yet are going to wait until the summer anyway, because they're trying to see if the NCAA is going to open recruiting back up to let these kids take visits and things like that. So it's not like a normal year where not having anybody signed on February 24th or not having anybody committed on February 24th would be some kind of catastrophe. There's still lots of good players out there. Plus, like you said, the transfer portal has been crazy already.
Yeah, I suspect if you're looking at 3 to 4 players, I would think that Jeff Capel, knowing the situation, I wouldn't doubt that majority of what they get might be from the transfer portal, or something that I know he's attempted to do the last couple of years is, and these players don't declare this until later, but possibly look at some guys that might want to reclassify. And I know a couple of those, he was in with a couple guys last year that decided to do that, and that doesn't happen for a little bit. So I would guess that might be a route that he tries to look at, especially the transfer portal. We know it's going to blow up again after this season. Kids will not be happy with their situation and look to go elsewhere. And I think I would guess that that's a place where plus you're not tied down to a kid for that long, depending on the situation. And they could possibly bring in a kid with that's veteran, that's played before, and not have to try to worry about on a true freshman to come in and provide valuable minutes.
I think especially at the center position, you kind of, they thought they had John Hughley, who was a 4-star guy, who was kind of somebody they could hope on as maybe like a future big time talent. I think there's a couple guys. Efton Reed is one of them that are still involved in the class of 2021. But if they can't get one of those guys, I think you're better off getting an older player some more experience, and then you kick the can down the road a little bit. All right, well, now we'll get into the 22s or the 23s and try to find our big star center that we can build on in the future, as opposed to trying to do it in a shortened period of time here.
Yeah, and I think that could be the same thing with the point guard. I talked to a guy today, Antonio Day, that's on Pittsburgh Sports Now. He 2 days ago he left Florida International, and he's actually supposed to talk with Jeff Capel tonight. He's a veteran point guard, good kid to talk to. Has his strength is defense, but he can score. Has done it. He's looking for a situation. Was interesting. The thing is, he says, I want to go to a school that's I'm needed, not just wanted. He wants basically he wants playing time, and he mentioned the Xavier Johnson situation. So we're going to see what happens there. But and another guy, I'm not sure what his situation is, but don't rule Pitt out completely with Jalen Hood-Schifino either. Yeah, I know he decommitted, but he's another guy that I'm not sure whether he could be a possible reclassify guy. But there was no bridges burned with Pitt. He didn't leave because of unhappiness with Pitt. Everyone in his family still likes Jeff Capel and Pitt, and he is a 4 to 5 star point guard that can lead a team, which is what Capel needs. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's pounding on that door, trying to see what can happen and possibly get him back aboard Pitt's commit list.
Yeah, that'd be big. And I think any kind of, look, I know what you're saying. People are frustrated about the end of this season and after kind of that win over Duke, thinking maybe this might be a tournament team. But I think any kind of positive momentum this offseason, like people are still going to get behind Jeff Capel if they see him bringing in the kind of talent that I think he's capable of bringing in. So I'm not super concerned about the trajectory of the team, as long as I think you have realistic expectations for where they're going to end up.
Yeah, I want to see these last. We're going to see Femi Odokali take over the point guard now, and I'm hoping, and I don't know what's going on with this, but I'd like to see guys like specifically Will Jeffers. Hopefully his minutes go up in this end of the season, and maybe there could be some positive momentum with him ending a season like it was he started, and there's been a little bit of a lull in the middle of the season. So we'll see what this opportunity brings some other guys. I know Johnson's the point guard and Jeffers isn't a point guard, but as we close out the season here, he's a guy that obviously still going to play a huge role in Pitt's any success they have in the future, and hopefully he maybe can have a few good games here before the end of the 21 season.
Yep, and of course we'll have all that coverage at Pittsburgh Sports Now. We'll have somebody down in North Carolina for Sunday's game. Not our usual. Mitchell Northern will be at ACC Wrestling, so we're going to have a fill-in Mitch down in Raleigh on Sunday, and then back at the Pete next week on Tuesday night. I'll be there, but be there kind of behind me.
I'm impressed with that background there, Alan. I got a crummy wall behind me.
There. I got the Pete here. Xavier is right there over. No, wait, that shoulder. Yeah, there we go. He's right there. He's still with us.
He's on a bus.
In photographic form. So, stick with Pittsburgh Sports Now for all the Pitt basketball coverage from myself, from Mike, from George Michalowski, from the rest of the crew. And thanks for watching this episode of Pitt Panther Talk. We'll be back with more next time. Thanks for watching, and